NFL draft is 1 week away. So much to talk about
Week.
who the Ravens should get, all this, all that trades on this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. Yes, welcome back to another installment, another edition of the Purple Rain podcast, episode 307. Yes, the Trace McSorley, Chris Redmond, Billy Cundiff, Kyle
Ooh.
Bowler, rest in peace, Ryan Mallett, and most recently, most notably, one Rashad Bateman. I have some cards right in front of me, of course I do. Thank you for coming through to this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. So much to talk about. I got the draft 1 week away. Very, very, very excited times in the NFL community. We also have some EDC talk. Will the Ravens be trading a big player? All of that. So thank you for coming through. Thank you for spending your Thursday evening with us here on the Purple Rain podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Purple Rain podcast. This guy right here on Instagram or on X at Sutton Def. Me, Instagram simply as10.prod or on X simply as10. And most importantly, our sponsor, Manscaped. Use code PRP for 20% off your whole order and free international shipping. The best, and I mean the best deal on the interweb. But I must ask you first and foremost, Sutton, how are you doing? How is your week?
Week is going great, man. Draft is only a week away, so it really feels like we're kind of underway. We're back into the NFL season. I know the offseason has only been going on for 2 months now, but when draft time comes around, you kind of get that spark again. Okay, we're about to get some new blood, some fresh blood on the team. Like, who are we gonna get? Like, the speculation is crazy. We're here to talk about it on Monday. If you didn't catch Monday's episode with Jason from at Huddled Up Films, make sure you go check that one out as well, because we broke down a lot of different draft prospects that Jason and ourselves thought were going to be very viable candidates for the Ravens to go ahead and pick up next Thursday. So that was a really good episode. Make sure you check that one out. But I'm doing well, man. Like I said, I'm excited for the draft. Everything else is going really well as well. So I want to see how the Rain Gang is doing, though. Let's see how the Rain Gang is doing in the live chat here. We got our guy, of course, Mod K Dog in the house, says, "Yo, Rain Gang fam, what is good on this Friday Eve?" Always giving a big shout out to the Manscaped as well. Says PRP is sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, code PRP 20% off your entire order plus the free international shipping. That is the kicker, we all know. Also giving love to the hashtag Replay Gang. If you're not watching this episode of the Purple Rain podcast, episode 307 of PRP Live, and you're part of the hashtag Replay Gang, thank you so much for joining this episode of the show. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel as well if you are on YouTube. Listen, man, it's the off season. You guys already know the drill, man. Like the video, man. It's crucial. It's crucial, especially for the offseason. Of course, you guys know not too much to cover around the Ravens or the NFL in general during the offseason when games aren't being played. But nonetheless, we are still here. So liking the video, it helps us out, like we always say, a ton. We've also got Jabari Cruz Ellis in the house as well. Says, "What's up, Purple Rain Gang? What's going on, Jabari? What's going on, man?
What's going on?
Appreciate you for coming through." Lisa Ann, a staple in this community, says, "Hey, Alex and Sutton Def. Chemo's on Easter Monday so far. I'm getting my rest like I'm supposed to."
Oh, yeah.
Very glad to hear you're getting your rest. All prayers up. We are in your corner at all times, Lisa. And we thank you so much for coming through to this episode of the show. Uplifting you always. Okay. So, Alex, as you know, as you spoke about at the top of the episode, we have a couple of different topics to get into surrounding the Ravens this week. There's some stuff about, of course, Eric DeCosta talking about the draft. There's some stuff about, even Bill Belichick talking about Lamar Jackson. We didn't cover that on the last episode. We didn't give our takes about that. So a couple of different things to kind of, to kind of get into. So without any further ado, I think it's time for the Purple Rain Report. So earlier this week, Eric DeCosta had his annual Liars Luncheon meeting with John Harbaugh, talking about pre-draft strategies. Of course, all the reporters, beat writers, they were asking him stuff about the draft, asking him stuff about contract situations and whatnot. And as we know, the Ravens normally hold their cards very, very close to the chest. And it was no different. This past, Tuesday, I want to say they had it. It was no different. It was kind of the same, dancing around a lot of different questions, saying the safe answers, but there were a few tidbits. There were a few tidbits of information that you could pull from that interview and kind of think about it critically and infer different things from it. So again, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first topic of the night. So guys, this is going to be Mark Andrews talk from Eric DeCosta. So he was asked about Mark Andrews and what the future is with the Ravens and Mark Andrews. Let's go ahead and listen in to what Eric DeCosta had to say.
About this at the owners' meetings, but you have made trades before with veteran players during the draft. Do you fully expect, there's been a lot of speculation about Mark Andrews' future in Baltimore. Do you fully expect him to remain with the team, and is he a big part of what you plan on doing this year?
Oh, man, I never know what's going to happen, Jeff. And I would never want to say this or that, but I can tell you this. Mark Andrews is a warrior, and he's played his butt off for us, and his competitiveness, his talent, his attitude, his leadership is so valued here. And he's a great player. And I think we're in the business of keeping as many great players as we can. So there's always a lot of unpredictability with the draft. You just never know.
All right, so yeah, that was
There we
Eric
go.
DeCosta. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
There we go, bro.
Cool. We good? We
Work
good?
with us here. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We can hear you. We can hear you. So yeah, that was Eric DeCosta talking about Mark Andrews, and here we are in our chat formation here. So listen, whatever you got to say about what you just heard about Eric DeCosta talking about Mark Andrews, let us know down below in the chat section, in the comment section, wherever you may be watching or listening, because we want to know exactly what you took from that. I kind of read in between the lines, Alex, me personally. I posted a video about this the other day when it initially happened, and I was like, I think Mark Andrews is gone. I think this all but confirms it, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I think that a player of Mark Andrews' caliber, he's been with Baltimore for, however many years, even since the Joe Flacco days. You know what I mean? He's been around for a while. The Ravens have a lot of loyalty that they owe to him, and I understand that. I think that's the reason why Eric DeCosta kind of dances around this question the way he does. But at the same time, I think that, and I said this on another episode that I uploaded to the channel. If you take Mark Andrews' name out of that scenario, right, and you put in like a Kyle Hamilton, right, somebody who's up and getting ready to get paid next season, right? How would Eric DeCosta answer that question differently? So for example, if the reporter asks Eric DeCosta, hey, Kyle Hamilton, there's been a lot of talks around him or whatever. Like, do you think he's going to be a big part of this team next year and going forward? Eric DeCosta will look at the reporter like he's crazy, right? Like he's a madman. Like, of course, it's Kyle freaking Hamilton. Of course, we're going to retain him. But with Mark Andrews, his first response is, oh, I never know what's going to happen. So I think that that's very indicative of Eric DeCosta's plans to at least field phone calls for Mark Andrews as of right now, and even on draft night as well. And they went on to talk about we've never actually traded a player on draft night, and somebody tried to correct them by saying, oh, Hollywood Brown, that happened back in, what was it, 2021, 2022, something like that. And he said, oh, no, I got that deal done a couple of days before the draft. So maybe this was kind of like a signal, a bat signal, if you will, out to other GMs around the league saying like, hey, Mark Andrews is for sale. If you're looking for a tight end out there to maybe help develop your whatever young quarterback you have on your roster, or maybe you have a really good team that just needs a couple other pieces to really put themselves over the edge, Mark Andrews is available, and whatever we can get for him to maybe get some more draft capital, maybe another player, whatever, we're taking calls. But Alex, what did you take from Eric DeCosta talking about Mark Andrews?
Yeah, I think it's telling that he kind of just pushed off the whole, is going to be here next year, saying, oh, well, he's a warrior and this and that. Like you say, when there's certain players you talk about, it's like he's going to be here next year. Hamilton being one of them, Linderbaum, obviously. But it's just, to me, it's like we're waiting for the right deal, I feel like. And it's kind of happened the same thing with Dallas Goedert of the Eagles. He's on the
Right,
trade block.
right.
It's kind of well known as kind of like the worst kept secret. It's Goddard and Andrews are both out there to be traded for. And it's like, who's gonna, pull the trigger first? So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck waiting. But I don't know if it's all right now if I can pull up some mock trades of Mark
Yeah,
Andrews real
yeah,
quick. Just
please.
okay, perfect. So Bleacher Report, they kind of package a couple of trades together, and here's what we'd be getting from just a couple of teams. So the first one's with the Carolina Panthers. We trade Mark Andrews, and we get back a fourth round pick, number 114, offensive lineman Brady Christensen. The next one with the Colts, we get their fourth rounder and seventh rounder, number 117 and number 232. We trade with the Jags. They get Andrews. We get their fourth rounder, 126 overall, and seventh rounder, 221 overall. Chargers. We get offensive lineman Jamari Salyer, and their fourth round pick, 125. And one final one with the New York Jets, who just love the Ravens for some reason. We get their fourth round pick and their sixth round pick, number 110 and number 207. So in all of these mocks, not one third round pick, not one day two pick, all day three, and maybe a player as well. So that's kind of the market right now, is what I'm feeling. Day three pick, maybe one or two, or you get a pick and a player. That's what it's looking like right now.
Yeah, and honestly, if you ask me, I don't think it's worth it. I think that if you're Eric DeCosta, you can get a day two pick for Mark Andrews. It might be looked at as like a fleece from a team, but you can get a day two pick. I don't want a day three, round four pick only because the most prominent players that have come out of round four and beyond in the past 7 years from Ravens drafts has been Justice Hill and Isaiah Likely. Outside of like those two names, and maybe you could add in a few more who had a slight impact or whatever. But outside of those two names, I really just can't think of really a long track record of the Ravens hitting deep in the draft. So if you trade away one of the best tight ends in the league, the tight end who literally led the league in tight end touchdowns last season, if you trade him away for anything less than a third round pick, I think it can be perceived as a loss, on the Ravens end. Especially considering you already have 11 draft picks. I could see if you only had maybe 4 or 5 draft picks this season, but you have 11. You have 11. So, I mean, getting a fourth and a seventh or a fourth and a sixth, it would seem like we would be trading away Mark Andrews for nothing. And like, that's not something that I would really want the Ravens to do. So that's where I'm at on it. But I do think that, again, I think Mark Andrews is been all but confirmed that he's gone. I think that he's no longer a Raven in a week or two's time, and that may be a very drastic statement for everybody listening right now. That may be a very drastic statement, but I think there's some truth. There's some truth that rings from that because, again, if you read between the lines of what Eric DeCosta said, you don't even have to read between the lines. Without a shadow of a doubt, there is something in Eric DeCosta that says like, hey, I'm willing to move off of Mark Andrews for the right price. So all you GMs out there, take heed of what I'm saying right now and call my phone. Maybe we can get a deal done like we did Hollywood a couple of years ago. Maybe before the draft, we can keep it under wraps so other teams aren't really trying to squander our plans and things like that. Eric DeCosta, he's kind of like, a lot of people give him props, and I do too. I'm not a big fan of stockpiling draft picks and having an average of 9 per year since 2019 draft picks wise. I'm not the hugest fan of that because I think that we should be going more all in because our window is wide open. But at the end of the day, and we call this thing the liar's luncheon, right? Eric DeCosta plays chess when it comes to this GM shit. He really does play chess in all facets, right? And you can just kind of tell from how he was talking and the things that he chose to and chose not to say in that press conference the other day. So I say all that to say I am very appreciative of Eric DeCosta. I just really do hope it works out, and I can't wait for the draft, man. But yeah, anything else on Andrews for you?
Not really. I still feel like he may get traded, but I'm gonna put it at like a 65% he doesn't, 35% he does. Just as we get closer and closer, we're not hearing much, and who knows? I mean, I'm not really gonna be sitting here on day one expecting a trade. Maybe it could be round two, Friday night, something could happen, or that that morning after where like maybe a team didn't get a tight end they wanted in round one, like okay, we can trade for Mark Andrews day two. But it's one of those kind of worst kept secrets right now, that he's on the block and it's just kind of for me preparing myself for him not to be a Raven, which will suck. But unfortunately, business is business and kind of have to
Yeah,
accept.
you kind of have to. You kind of have to, right? But yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's our take on it. Alex thinks there's a 65% chance that Mark Andrews will not be traded. I think that there's probably about a 65% chance that he is traded and he's no longer a Baltimore Raven. So we kind of split the difference there, but we'll see next Thursday who's right and who's wrong about that one. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next topic of the evening. We have our guy Dre in the building. What's going on, Dre? Appreciate you for coming through. So, of course, Eric DeCosta talked about a litany of topics the other day, and edge rusher was another topic that he brought up, and he also ended up mentioning what he thought the best position groups in this upcoming draft class were. So, lots of interesting stuff. I'll shut up. Here is again Eric DeCosta, Ravens GM.
Where you guys are at edge rusher and just the options you could have. Do you view this as a particularly strong edge rush draft class?
Well, I do. I do think it's a good draft class. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we've got our entire outside linebacker core coming back this year. So that's a great situation for us because we didn't lose anybody. And so from that standpoint, I think it's good. Now, again, there are some really talented guys in this draft class. And, there are guys that we'll be looking at as first-round guys, second-round guys, third-round guys, fourth-round guys we think could come in and compete to really play right away or develop and become really good players. So that's exciting for us. I think that if you're looking at the offensive line, the defensive line, and the outside linebackers as a whole, I would say they're three of the strongest positions in this draft class.
Eric.
Mm. So, unfortunately, I do have to say he's wrong on one of those. We did lose Chris Board, who was playing a good amount of time as a linebacker, especially the second half of the year. Trent Simpson, wasn't getting that play time, and neither was Malik Harrison at the linebacker. So I kind of think we are in the market to draft a linebacker, contrary, us having our linebackers back. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do get somebody maybe round 4 or 5.
You know, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised either if we got a linebacker, rounds 4 or 5, maybe even beyond then. But at the same time, I don't see a real need for like middle linebacker, inside. I really don't see that need. I would like to see Trenton Simpson get another shot at kind of coming into his own because like we mentioned in the other episodes, Alex. I mean, linebacker is not a young man's position unless you are just literally a special talent. It takes a lot of learning to learn how to play between a secondary and the trenches, in the NFL. So I think that Trenton Simpson, we have to give him a little bit more grace and give him a little bit more space and opportunity to be that guy that we know he can be because he's got all the physical tools, right? He's got all the physical tools. He just needs the instincts, and that will kind of get him where he needs to be. And when it comes to Roquan Smith, I think the Ravens are just kind of like positioned with an attitude towards Roquan Smith where it's like, hey, man, like we're paying you all this money. Like you're a top 5 paid player on this team. Like just freaking perform. Like we're not going to freaking bring in your replacement just yet. Like just perform. Bro, we're paying you, bro. So I think that's one of those kind of situations. But when it comes to edge rusher, and I actually saw Chris Sims talking about this today on his show. He was saying that, Kyle Van Noy is getting up there in age. And outside of that, on the other side, you've got Adafe Owe, you've got like Tavius Robinson, guys who, basically nothing really to write home about, So I think that edge rusher is a very, very glaring need, on this Ravens roster. And Eric DeCosta even mentioned it towards the end of that clip there, Alex. He said, the most prominent or the strongest positions in this year's draft class in 2025, offensive line, defensive line, and edge rusher, like outside linebacker. That is going to be, a point of emphasis for him, I think. So you can fully expect, I think you can fully expect for that 27th pick, if the Ravens do end up staying there in this upcoming draft, you can fully expect for the Ravens to either draft a guard You can expect for them to draft an interior D lineman, or you can expect for them to draft an outside linebacker. One of those three. I would, honestly, at this point, I would be shocked if it's secondary.
Yeah.
I would be shocked unless, again, the league kind of shifts towards, okay, premium positions right now are offensive line, defensive line, edge rushers. Or basically you could just say offensive line, defensive line, trenches. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl. So everybody knows where they need to be trending towards, what they need to be picking up. So again, with that being said, I would be shocked if it's secondary unless all of the premier talents, right, at those two positions, or those two position groups are taken by the time 27 rolls around.
Yeah, and we don't know how that first round's gonna go. It could be a crazy run on receivers. Who knows? It could be a crazy run on a different position. So let's hope a really, really good player falls to the Ravens. And I really appreciate that. But what's going on, Bradley? Saying, "What's up, fellas? What is up to you, Bradley? Thank you for
What's going
coming
on,
through."
brother?
Dre here says, "I love Owe, but if we don't draft a guy this year, we'll probably be stuck with paying him 20 million." And yeah, he's making 15 mil this year, and I'm kind of at the same place with you. I wouldn't mind drafting an edge rush first round because paying somebody like that is a lot. A lot of money. 20 mil for a guy who finally hit 10 sacks. I'm really happy for him, but
Yeah.
I need that X factor. I really need that X factor out of my edge rusher. I just don't see it.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. And like we always say, like the AFC North is chock full of premier star edge rushers. I mean, the T.J. Watts, the Trey Hendricksons, Myles Garrett, potentially an Abdul Carter, maybe even joining the Cleveland Browns. So it's just like, when are we going to get our guy? And honestly, that's the only thing that really keeps us close to some of these other teams in the division, right? If you don't have a star quarterback, right, and at least a competent defense, you need an absolute game wrecker at edge rusher, right? I think TJ Watt with the Steelers is a big reason why they've been able to kind of hang in games and really contend. Myles Garrett with the Browns has wrecked multiple games throughout his career. You know what I mean? Trey Hendrickson he really came into his own last season. I think led the league in sacks with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just the rest of the Bengals defense is just absolute dog shit. So that's where they're at. But if you want to beat a star quarterback, if you want to beat an electrifying quarterback, you got to have an edge rusher that plays with his hair on fire. And the Ravens just don't have that in this division yet. And that, again, that's going to be one of the biggest points of emphasis. If they go past pick 27, and I've said this before on this podcast, if they do not draft an edge rusher with their top two picks, my grade cap for this upcoming draft would be a D+. They can't score any higher than a D+ if they do not draft an edge rusher with their first two selections. That's where I'm at with it. So, I'm glad. It makes me happy. It's a net positive for me that Eric DeCosta got up there and he literally said that, like, yeah, basically trenches, offensive line, defensive line, which includes outside linebacker, edge rusher, right? Those are the strongest positions. So I think that he'll kind of trend towards picking up one of those earlier in the draft. So I'm happy about that. Dre also says, not gonna lie, I'm gonna be hot.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Oh, he froze. Nah, he froze. Frozen Sutton is struck. Oh man, there you go.
No.
You're good. You're
Am I
good.
back?
You're
Am I
good.
back?
You're back. You're
Okay.
back. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sorry about that. I was just saying what Dre had said. He says, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be hot if we take another DB round 1.
Man. He says, if we're paying 20 million a year, I want a complete game wrecker, LOL. But fans are so stuck on safety and comparing Starks and Iman Wari to Kaham. They're nice, but not on Kaham level. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Hamilton. I mean, if you just watched his college, like you knew he was gonna be good. You weren't fooled by some BS freaking open practice
Yeah.
route. You know what I mean? Like you knew he had all the tools.
Right.
Would it be nice to have him in the secondary? Yeah, but I mean nobody, and I mean nobody else can be there at 27. I mean every possible lineman you think has to be gone. Every edge rusher possible that you think can make a day one impact has to be gone for me to then go, DB. So we're just in a spot where I feel like it's just guard or edge, protect Lamar or get the one missing piece on this defense is kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's really where we're at. And again, not to keep referring to Chris Sims' show from earlier today, but he was kind of saying, as somebody, a football analyst who doesn't, his niche is not the Ravens, right? He covers the whole NFL. His perspective was the Ravens are good. Like, they don't have any glaring needs. Us Ravens fans, we would say, oh, no, we need a left guard, right? We need a game wrecking edge. We need a right guard, maybe even this, that, and the third, But from the outside looking in, most of the world views the Ravens as really not needing too much. They're kind of like right there. So the whole best player available drafting strategy, I think, would be the most conducive to success. So, if we do end up drafting a DB round one, it can only be, again, it can only be if all of those certified, well, not certified, but like all those potential game wreckers at edge, all those interior D linemen that are really first round talents are already off the board, then yeah, okay, go ahead and get Kyle Hamilton's Robin to his Batman, so he can go ahead and do what he needs to do, and we can go from there. Let me see. Tanja Bowman. What's going on, Tanja? Says, I don't want another safety at 27. We just drafted 2 corners plus Bo Braid and Sanusi Kane as safeties. I want pass rush or somebody for the interior defensive line, run stopper or something. Yes, I mean, we're kind of all in agreement here. Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of in agreement here, I've always, it's kind of ironic now how I would say like maybe 2 years ago, a lot of us were calling for, wide receiver round one, wide receiver round one. You know what I'm saying? Like we wanted that. We wanted something flashy. We wanted something sweet, like candy, like sugar, but like now the whole fan base is like, let's invest into the fruits and vegetables of this roster, which is going to be the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line. And that's really kind of like the missing piece, not even the missing piece, but the incomplete piece, right? Because there's pieces along both of those lines, but there's just kind of holes here and there that kind of rear their ugly head, especially in the postseason. So, I think my guy Bradley from Charm City Sideline Podcast, shout out to them. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to them on YouTube as well. Says, agreed, KVN and Owe could both be gone next offseason. So yeah, that makes it all the more important, right? All the more important for the Ravens to draft an edge rusher within the first 2 rounds. And honestly, if a guy is there in that first round that you like, just don't even think about it. Don't even think twice. Just take him. We got to take a shot, man. Exactly. We got to take a shot. So, yeah. So that is that was what Eric DaCosta, myself, and Simply AS10 had to say about the current evaluation of the Ravens edge rushing group. Got about 50 people watching live right now between YouTube and X. Shout out to all you guys watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel as well if you'd like to. I mean, it'd help us out a ton, but it's up to you. It's up to you at the end of the day. But there's one more topic that we wanted to cover, one more clip that we wanted to show from this talk that the Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh had the other day. So this one was about whether or not Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh have been consulting Lamar Jackson when it comes to the draft. So here is EDC yet again.
Have you talked to Lamar in terms of his list of draft picks or guys that he's looked at, and what's the conversation, I guess, been with him this offseason?
Lamar and I have texted a little bit. We had a conversation. We didn't get into any specific players. We talked a little bit about the roster and just what he's up to, and his vision and his excitement for the season and all that stuff that goes into it. But other than that, I think I just probably keep the conversations private.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the most obvious answer I would expect from EDC. Probably, yeah, I've talked to him. We've talked about football, and he's ready to get back out there. But obviously, I think he's definitely shot a couple of names. I mean, you're not gonna fool us. He shot him Zay Flower's name, Judy's name in the past. Like Lamar will give who he likes and receivers possibly that he may have his eye on. So it's definitely happened. But will we get one of them? Probably not. But you're not fooling us, EDC. Not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. Deshaun86 says here, Lamar Jackson does not have any say-so. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that he has a say-so. I mean, like, I think it's really just like a circumstantial thing. like at the end of the day, Eric DaCosta is going to draft who he wants to draft because damn it, it's his job. You know what I mean? Like that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to pick the players off of the board. And Lamar Jackson is paid to play on Sundays. So of course, Eric DaCosta is going to have kind of the priority when it comes to whoever he wants to pick. But I think, like I said, it's circumstantial. So like, for example, if there's a scenario in, I don't know, round 3 or 4, right, where maybe you're looking to grab a backup tight end or something like that. Maybe you're looking to grab a wide receiver that you really like on the board or something like that. If it's somebody that Eric DaCosta likes, but he also knows that Lamar Jackson likes this guy as well, as opposed to somebody that maybe Eric DaCosta just likes, I think he would lean towards the one that they both like, EDC and Lamar. So like I said, I think it's like a circumstantial thing. It's more of like okay, in case we come to a crossroads between these two players, maybe I know your preference on one player, so we'll lean towards that one. I think that's kind of what we're dealing with here when it comes to Lamar Jackson's consultation when it comes to the draft. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good point. Maybe day 3, we know we're getting down there in picks, and maybe there's somebody he does like and could battle it out for that final receiver spot or maybe a special team, something like that. Definitely could see that happening. Um, and Tanji here brings it up. That's why we got OBJ and D Hop, Hollywood plus Zay, all picks from Lamar. Yeah, I mean, there was a reason why he came back. He wanted OBJ and D Hop. We did get Odell, couldn't get DeAndre Hopkins, but we drafted Zay Flowers. So we had Zay, Bate, and Odell in that 2023-2024 season. So definitely his input is definitely taken noted of now. But tell you one thing, I would love to get him signed to an extension sooner rather than later. Just get that out the way, get a lot of headache out the way. That's what I wanted them to be talking about, not about the draft.
Mm,
Just get me that extension.
yeah, I don't think anybody asked that question either about the extension. Because I listened to the entire thing, and the only things I really heard about Lamar was when they were asking about his consultation for the draft. And but that's a really good point. I'd love to go back and maybe give it a second or a third listen to see if they brought that up, but I don't think that they did. But that's a very, very important question, especially considering that this team's this team's championship window is fully reliant upon Lamar Jackson's cap allotment. You know what I'm saying? Like, if his cap balloons too big, and there's no way that we can get a lot of younger talent, or maybe even like a sustained talent in this league, older talent, it's just, I don't think we're gonna have enough help.
Yeah.
So like you said, like, we shouldn't keep kicking the can down the road on this one. I mean, let's just go ahead, bite the bullet now, make Lamar Jackson again the highest paid quarterback in the league, and we got to get that done, man. We got to get that done. That's a really good point, Alex. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting on it. I know Josh Allen got paid, and that's kind of just sitting like, all right, well, give him a little bit more, whatever he got, and just call it a day. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So I'd like to get that done, but yeah, it wasn't asked, unfortunately. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. So, was there anything else from the Eric DaCosta press conference with John Harbaugh that you heard that you might have
No,
wanted
I
to talk
think that
about?
was it. I think the main points were hit head on.
Yeah, yeah. Those were my main takeaways. But so for our next topic, right? For our next topic, let me see. Actually, before we get into that, let me see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Dre says Pat Bryant being mentored by a D Hop sounds good to me. So, I mean, it sounds like Dre is campaigning for another receiver. I mean, we got 11 damn picks, so we got to. I'm sure we'll get one. At some point. I'm sure we'll get one at some point. Imani says they need to get someone on O line to get a guy to protect Lamar. Also agree with this, Imani. I think that, again, like Eric DaCosta said, offensive line and defensive line are going to be the strongest position groups in this draft, according to him, in his opinion. All subjective, of course, but I think that means that he's probably going to lean towards those position groups earlier rather than later in the draft. So I think your wish will come true. Imani, let me see. Jeremiah says never enough corners, but I would love a defensive tackle at 27. Again, so building up that trenches. Loving the fruits and vegetables of your roster. Definitely agree with that, Jeremiah, as well. I mean, there was a guy the other day I was looking into. Was it Walter Nolan? It was last name Nolan. He was a interior D lineman who a lot of people were mocking to the Ravens, and I was thinking to myself like, oh, I mean, this guy looks pretty good. I was watching his tape and everything. I think he went to Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was an Ole Miss kid, but definitely one to look
Yeah.
into as well.
Yeah, watch
Ole
North.
Miss. Okay. Yeah. Let me see. And then Dre follows up to his Pat Bryant comment was saying we can get him in like round 4 or 5, I believe. Jeremiah says Nolan looks good. DB says Tre'Davious White signed back with the Bills. That must be
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, that is new news. This guy, all right, this guy was sitting here dapping up his former teammates right before the game we played the Bills in divisional, and he goes back to him. I don't want to, say, "Oh, get over it," but like it still kind of rubs me the wrong way. And then got beat on sideline, which I still think was PI. But I mean, good for him. He went back to 1 year, 7 mil. We'll probably get a comp pick for it. So good for you. Hope Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers absolutely burn him whenever we see him in the regular season. So
Yeah, and
and in the
Jeremiah
playoffs.
bringing up the point here, Chidobe Awuzie took his spot already. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean that's the thing about veterans though. They're so hit or miss. You know what I mean? Like I think the one thing that you get when you have like the young guys, you bring in the rookies, the homegrown talent. Like you get that loyalty, right? That undying loyalty to the franchise, unless your name is Hollywood Brown, and maybe a couple of others. But with the veterans, if you go and you're with a team and you have success and whatnot, if you run into that team later in your career, and maybe the same quarterback's there, maybe the same head coach is there, maybe the same coordinator from whatever side of the ball you played on is still there, like you're going to have like that soft spot. You know what I mean? And like playing like a Raven requires you to not have that soft spot, unfortunately. So, Tre'Davious White made a couple of plays, for the Ravens. Missed a couple of plays as well. I think that swapping him for lack of better words for Chidobe Awuzie, I think is kind of like a lateral move. But hopefully Chidobe Awuzie performs better. Hopefully I'm wrong. It's not a lateral move and it's an upward move. So we'll see. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into our last topic of the episode. Again, thank y'all so much for coming through this episode. Almost 70 people watching live right now. Shout out to y'all. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Sudden Death. That is simply AS10. As you guys know, we are the Purple Rain Podcast, and this is episode 307. Okay, last topic of the night. I think that we didn't bring this up on the last episode of the show when we talked to Jason. Bill Belichick was recently in the news. I think he came out with like a book, or it was in an interview or something like that, where he basically said in so many words that he regrets not drafting Lamar Jackson. And this was something that, of course, just knee-jerk reaction. You're kind of flattered as a Ravens fan, right? One of the best head coaches of all time, saying that, like, oh, he missed an opportunity to draft Lamar Jackson, which is basically saying, like, he could have prolonged his head coaching career in New England if he would have just drafted Lamar. He'd still be, he might be 2-3 more championships deep at this very moment. It kind of makes you think that way. So what did you take away from the greatest head coach of all time, NFL head coach of all time, kind of saying this about the Ravens' current quarterback?
It is flattering, don't get me wrong, especially what he did to Belichick that rookie. Oh no, the second year.
Yeah.
But they did take N'Keal Harry over Lamar Jackson, so
Yeah.
he was there. But I know Tom Brady was there as well when the time they drafted him. But that's kind of how the cookie crumbles, and now you're at UNC, so enjoy. But it is flattering hearing that from one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Saying they wish that he took our quarterback. So thank you, Bill. We do appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think honestly, the hindsight is always going to be 2020, right? But if you go back to that time, like 2017, 2018, we didn't know how long Tom Brady had left.
Yeah.
Like there was really no real end in sight. I mean, the man won another Super Bowl after that. You know what I mean? So it's like actually a couple. So it's like you can't really say. How do I say? I mean, Belichick, I can't really blame him for not picking up, or at least not, because Belichick was a GM as well, in New England. I really can't blame him for not going out and getting Lamar Jackson in that draft, because you would have had this kid from Louisville, who's obviously an electric talent, kind of wasting away his best prime athletic years waiting for Brady to retire. You know, it would have been kind of like a waste of a draft pick. So,
I need to.
again, like,
I'm sorry, I need to correct myself. I'm sorry.
sure.
It wasn't Nikhil Harry. It was Sony Michelle.
Oh, yeah, they drafted him one pick before Lamar. That's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But even then, they won the Super Bowl that year. Lamar's rookie year, they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
So, I mean, with all due respect, Michelle, he made his plays in the Super Bowl as well. He had a touchdown. I think he had the only touchdown in the Super Bowl. Hindsight's 2020, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. But, yeah, nonetheless, still a flattering comment. I love we broke it down like that because I hadn't thought about it like that until we just kind of talked about it just now. Like, yeah, man. I mean, of course, he would have loved to draft Lamar Jackson. He probably would have loved to draft Patrick Mahomes. You know, what pick was Patrick Mahomes drafted at? It was first round, right? Like mid first round or something like
I
that.
think it was top 10 picks, I believe.
It was top 10. Okay,
Yeah. He was 10th. Yeah, he was 10th.
it was 10.
So
Okay,
the players that went before him: John Ross, Christian McCaffrey, Mike Williams, Jamal Adams, Corey Davis, Leonard Fournette, Solomon Thomas, Mitch Trubisky, and Myles Garrett.
Mitchell Trubisky, Chicago, man. Wow, wow. Yeah, yeah. Tanja says here he did not say Mahomes or Josh Allen that he regrets drafting it. And why do you think that? Why do you think that he didn't say that he regrets drafting? He regrets not drafting Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but rather Lamar Jackson.
Because of how far he fell, I think. Those other guys, they're top 10. And when a guy falls that low, in the first round and he's that good, you start questioning yourself, scouting possibly, and your decision. So that's probably why I think is everybody had a chance to. It's not like, oh, well, we were never going to get like the Ravens. We're never going to get Abdul Carter. He's not going to fall past pick 2 or 3, But this guy went to 32.
Yeah.
So
See,
that's
I
why
think I think it's because he saw something or he sees something in Lamar Jackson, a quality, a trait in Lamar Jackson, an ability in Lamar Jackson that he does not see in the other two quarterbacks. And obviously, we can point to the rushing ability, right? But I think that it kind of speaks to something a little bit deeper because if he was only able to run the football, then I don't think Bill Belichick would be saying this. But the fact that he's able to throw the football and run the football and be, probably the most dynamic quarterback we've ever seen, that is the reason why, he was chosen by Bill Belichick to say something like this, as opposed to like a Josh Allen who just won the MVP, as opposed to Patrick Mahomes who has 3 rings already. Yeah, that's really what it is. And it just kind of it kind of paints Lamar Jackson in this sort of like almost like majestic light, like this is like a unicorn of a player who like, how did none of us see this, right? How did every single team make a pick before, Lamar Jackson? You know what I'm saying? Like even the Ravens drafted Hayden Hurst before they drafted Lamar Jackson in that season. So it's just, I don't know. I think it speaks volumes about Lamar Jackson. Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of quarterbacks, can I just kind of flip this real quick?
Sure.
Report came out, all right, that one, Joseph Vincent Flacco, almost came back to the Ravens. He almost came back.
Yes.
So came out with I think Mike Preston from the Sun. The Ravens have reached out to Mr. Flacco's camp, interested in bringing him back, but he himself still believes he has it in him to play, right in that heart of his. And you know what? Can't blame him because you weren't touching the field here unless something dire happened. With the Browns, I think you're better than Kenny Pickett, probably. I think you're better than whatever they got in Cleveland. They're probably better than a mid-round rookie they draft. But here, you're not starting. So, good on him. Good on Joe. Going to maybe get some play time. Hopefully he doesn't play us, or hopefully he doesn't play at all for the Browns. And just sit back and just enjoy. But that would have been something, Joe Flacco coming back for just one more year and just sitting behind Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been very, very cool. I saw our, friend of the show, Hoodie Ramey, he was tweeting the other day. He said that he's almost glad that Joe Flacco didn't come back because he thought that in a playoff game, if Lamar Jackson starts to make mistakes, then they're going to be calling for Flacco to be put in the game. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know. Like, this isn't 2018. This is year 8 of Lamar Jackson. I think that this franchise, this fan base, fully respects Lamar Jackson. More than enough to not disrespect him by chanting Flacco's name if he throws like a pick or something like that in the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't see that happening. But again, just for nostalgia purposes, it would be cool to see Flacco back in the purple and gold. Fully agree with that. But like you said, I mean, Flacco wants to play, man. I mean, like, we saw him just a season ago, 2 seasons ago, really heat things up for the Browns. Lead them to the playoffs, and of course they got bounced out, but looked good, looked good. So it's just, I don't know, man. And then of course last season Anthony Richardson goes out and Flacco steps in, looks good for a little while. He's always going to have his ups and downs, which is why, of course, he can't start for the Baltimore Ravens because our Super Bowl window is right now, and he won a Super Bowl for us back in 2012, well over a decade ago. So, it is what it is. All the best I wish to Vincent Flacco. I mean, I want to see him do well. Of course, just not against us. But I think really what this says about the Browns is that they don't plan on drafting a quarterback in this year's draft, right? I think that they are going to go ahead and stick with Flacco. And who else did they signed somebody else, didn't they? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, they got Kenny Pickett. They traded for Kenny Pickett.
Right. Yeah.
What's their depth chart looking like right now? Bear with me. And they have Watson, but he's hurt for probably the whole year. So that's really it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, man, I don't see them. I think that we're looking at either facing Travis Hunter twice a year or Abdul Carter twice a year, with the Browns sitting at that second pick there. I mean, fully expect for the Titans to go ahead and draft Cam Ward with the number 1, but that number 2 pick with the Browns having Joe Flacco, and them just re-signing Myles Garrett. Now, here's the other thing. I don't know. I still don't know how they convinced, outside of money, I still don't know how they convinced Myles Garrett to come back. I mean, I don't know what Myles Garrett had to be thinking when they brought in Joe Flacco, because Myles Garrett's whole thing was like, hey, bro, look, like, I'm trying to compete for a championship while I am still young and viable, like right now, I don't think he has the time to wait an extra season or two for the Browns to be mid some more so they can draft, a high end quarterback. Unless he's willing to kind of capitulate his Lombardi wielding dreams. If he's willing to kind of let that go, then sure. But again, I don't know how Myles Garrett agreed to any of this. With the way things are going right now.
That's exactly how I feel about Max Crosby. You cannot sit here and tell yourself that the Raiders are anywhere close to a championship.
Facts.
You can't. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that money right there is like that's 124 million whatever you got. That's generational, obviously. Your grandkids might be set up from that. But to sit here and say you want to win and you want to do all this, I don't know, man. I'm all for it. Get paid, but you know what's gonna come with that money. They can't build around you much. You have to hit on the draft picks. And are the Raiders gonna do much with Geno Smith? Probably not. I can't see it happening. Maybe 7 wins max, cool, but that's how the game goes. And good on them for getting paid, both Myles Garrett and Max Crosby.
Another thing I don't understand, and this is just kind of like a quick sidebar, but of course the Las Vegas Raiders went out and acquired Geno Smith this offseason. I don't know why big market teams would decide to go with small time quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If anything, take a swing in the draft on a hot name and maybe he'll pop. But like, you're in Las Vegas, for crying out loud. Do you know how many people stopping through Las Vegas would love to see a high end quarterback, playing at Allegiant Stadium? If they're driving on the highway and they see a top 5 quarterback on the back of the jersey from the highway, right, on the big screens that you see from the highway, that's going to allure people to the stadium. It's going to put butts in seats, and ultimately it's going to turn up your franchise. So I don't see Geno Smith really bringing a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of dollars, putting a whole lot of butts in seats. And honestly, quite frankly, I don't see Geno Smith cranking out a whole bunch of wins for Las Vegas, especially in that division. I think the Chargers are only going to get better. The Chiefs are still going to be the Chiefs. So, it's just – and then the Broncos – I mean, listen, man, the Broncos, you know how much I love Bo Nix. I think that they're going to take a step forward as well. So, if you're Vegas, yeah, and like you said, Max Crosby as well. It seems like they're just willfully mid. That's going to be the name of this episode. Willfully mid, right? That's a new term I'm coining right now. I don't know why Siri just activated, but she did for some reason. Anyway, yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and leave it there for this episode of the Purple Rain podcast, man. It's been a great one. It's been a fun one. As we're about 50 minutes in, still about 70 people watching live. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you like the video before you get out of here. If you're on YouTube, if you're watching on X, make sure you follow me on X. You're watching on my X page at Sutton Def. You can also follow Simply AS10 on X at Simply AS10. You can follow him on Instagram at simplyas10.prod. You can follow us on Instagram at the Purple Rain podcast. Again, if you're on YouTube, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. And with that being said, I'm gonna let my guy Alex take us out.
Thank you for coming through to episode 307 of the Purple Rain podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. Enjoy the last weekend before the draft, because football's really coming back around after next week. So
Yeah.
enjoy that, and as always, stay positive and test freaking things.
Yes. And never, ever forget, even on the rainiest of days, to call God. Episode 307 of PRP. We're going to catch you guys in the next one.